were killed in 2012 by elderly drivers, according to CDC.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to talk about reasons why most elderly shouldn't drive over the age of 65. In my opinion, that I feel like this is going to be relevant to all of us because every single one of us either has a parent or a grandparent or a great-grandparent that is over the age of 65 and drives on the roads. And what's in it for you? At the end of my speech, I'm going to talk a little bit about best practices for elders before they actually get on the road to start driving. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about some statistics and some experiences that we've had in the world today and in the last few years. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my personal experiences with my grandparents, and then I'm talking about best practices. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some statistics. So according to USA Today, there have been multiple accidents over the years involving elderly over the age of 65 on the roads. On July 16th in 2003, George Russell Welder, who is age 86, drove his Buick into a farmer's market, and he killed 10 people and injured over 70. He had mistaken his accelerator for the brake, and the state of California, which is where the accident happened, revoked his license. He was put on probation for 5 years, and then he was also fined over $100,000 in penalties because of the accident. And on October 9th, in 2006, Elizabeth Jane Baldwick, age 84, drove her car into a Sears in Orlando, Florida. She also had mistaken her accelerator for the brake and ended up running over a 19-year-old boy who was at the cash register. The 19-year-old boy, because Elizabeth was unconscious, ran over to her car, and her foot was still on the accelerator, and she ended up with 2 broken ankles. So Florida ended up revoking her license. She wasn't put on probation. She didn't have to pay any fines for that. In 2007, Elizabeth Grimes, who is age 90, ran a red light. She ended up hitting Katie Bolka, who was age 17, and T-boned her, and she died 5 days later in the hospital after the accident. Elizabeth also had 2 broken ankles and then was admitted to a nursing home after the accident. She, the night before, also ended up suffering a minor stroke before the accident, which her family was aware of and still allowed her to drive. So now that I've talked a little bit about some statistics, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my personal experience with one of my grandparents. So my grandma is 81 years old today, and she still drives just like every one of us in the room. When I was 7, many years ago, she picked me and my little sister up from school, and she ended up turning down a wrong way. She couldn't actually turn around after going down the one way for 1 mile, and ended up having to drive down the shoulder all the way down the road, which we could have been hit multiple times, especially if the weather was really bad. We just happened to be sunny and bright outside that day. So my personal experience hasn't been that great, but luckily I'm still here today. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some best practices and some things that our elders should think about before actually getting on the road so that we can keep them safe and other people safe. So USAA asks elders to be honest with themselves. One of the questions that they always ask is driving scary for you, or is it something that comes easy to you? Which I think is only a question that you can actually answer yourself. In military.com, they talk about adapting safer driving habits. They talk about making sure that you plan your trips, making sure that you avoid heavy traffic, making sure that you don't take any left turns, try to take right turns at lights. Then they also talk about avoiding driving at dusk, dawn, and at nighttime. And they also ask to make sure that you increase your following distance so that you have a more chance of making sure that you can react in time. And AAA always talks about being aware of the medications that you're on. Most medications have warnings for drowsiness and risks for actually driving on the road, and they normally tell you to avoid doing that. Also, over 2/3 of elders over the age of 65 take more than 5 medications a day. So they always ask that you be aware of the side effects of those medications, especially if it's risks to driving. So now that I've talked a little bit about statistics of elderly drivers, talked about my personal experience, I've also talked a little bit about best practices. So that all being said, maybe, just maybe, taking keys away from our elders when we're aware of symptoms as far as taking medications or whether or not they've had a stroke is probably the best solution for some of our elderly drivers so that we can keep them safe as well as everyone else that's on the road.
Very good.
That's the reason I don't